The history of slavery is long and complex, spanning thousands of years and many cultures. Here's a broad overview. Ancient slavery. Mesopotamia, Egypt, Greece, and Rome all practiced slavery. Slaves were often war captives, criminals, or born into servitude. In ancient Rome, slaves could work in households, farms, mines, or even as educators. Some could eventually gain freedom. Medieval slavery. During the Islamic Golden Age, slavery was common, but with legal regulations. Enslaved people came from across Africa, Europe, and Asia. In Europe, slavery gradually transitioned into serfdom, where peasants were tied to land rather than owned outright. Transatlantic slave trade, 15th to 19th century. One of the most infamous and brutal forms of slavery. Europeans, especially the Portuguese, British, Spanish, and French, transported millions of Africans to the Americas. Africans were captured or sold into slavery, often by rival tribes or traders, then shipped in inhumane conditions across the Atlantic. They were forced to work on plantations, especially producing sugar, cotton, and tobacco. This system fueled European wealth and deeply scarred African societies. Abolition movements. By the late 18th to 19th centuries, movements to abolish slavery gained traction. Britain abolished the slave trade in 1807 and slavery in 1833. The United States ended slavery after the Civil War, 1861 to 1865, with the 13th Amendment in 1865. Other nations followed suit, but illegal slavery persisted. Modern slavery. Though illegal almost everywhere today, forms of modern slavery still exist. Human trafficking, forced labor, child soldiers, and debt bondage affect millions worldwide. Let's dive into the Atlantic slave trade and its impact on South America, which played a major role in that dark chapter of history. The Atlantic slave trade in South America. 1. Brazil, the epicenter. Brazil received the largest number of enslaved Africans, around 4.9 million people, over 40% of all Africans brought to the Americas. The Portuguese colonists used enslaved labor for sugar plantations, mining, especially gold in Minas Gerais, and later coffee production. Brazil was the last country in the Western Hemisphere to abolish slavery in 1888 with the Lei Áurea, or Golden Law. Roots and trade. Africans were captured or bought from West and Central Africa, especially from areas like Angola, Congo, and the Bight of Benin. Slave ships crossed the Middle Passage to Brazil and other South American ports, where many enslaved people died due to brutal conditions. Portuguese, Spanish, and Dutch traders dominated this part of the Atlantic trade for centuries. Other South American regions, Spanish colonies like Peru, Colombia, and Venezuela, also imported enslaved Africans, though in smaller numbers than Brazil. In Peru, enslaved people worked in silver mines in cities like Lima as artisans, domestic workers, and laborers. In Colombia, Africans worked in gold mining and agriculture. Resistance and legacy. Many enslaved Africans resisted through rebellions, escape, and the formation of quilombos, runaway slave communities, like the famous Quilombo dos Palmares in Brazil. Afro-descendant cultures in South America have had a huge impact on music, religion, like candomblé and santeria, cuisine, and language.